In Álfheimr, time was like a smooth stone at the bottom of a river. It did not flow, it merely was. This realm, nestled among the tenderest branches of Yggdrasil, seemed the very place where the breath of the gods first touched the earth. The sky was bathed in an eternal, pearl-like luminescence that was neither dawn nor dusk. This was the home of the Ljósálfar, the Light Elves. Their skin resembled silk woven with moonlight, and their eyes held the freshest moment of a spring morning. Their light didn't come from without, like a mirror's reflection. It seeped from the essence of their being, from their very bones and blood, hallowing everything they touched. This radiance, which infused the silvery leaves, the murmur of clear streams, and the crystal-veined rocks, was not merely an illumination, but the very beating heart of life itself. Álvar was both the brightest child and the most sorrowful guardian of this light. Though his name meant elf army in the ancient tongue, his war was not fought with the sword, but with the whisper of healing herbs. His armor was not of iron, but of the protective weave of runes. As his long, slender fingers mended the torn petals of a flower, the songs that fell from his lips carried the deepest memory of the world tree. The life of the Ljósálfar was a noble service dedicated to Freyr, the god of prosperity and peace. On that day, during the Alphablot, the most serene celebration of the year, Álvar was raising a crystal goblet filled with golden mead to the sky. The tart, sweet vapor rising from the goblet merged with the eternal light suspended in the air, mingling with the scent of fresh mint and wild thyme from the healing garden. But in that moment, in the very midst of the ritual, he felt that something was irremediably wrong. It was not a sudden break, but a slowly spreading decay. The edges of Yggdrasil's silvery leaves were curling inward, like parchment touched by fire. Even the most vibrant herbs in the healing garden grew wan at Álvar's touch, losing their life force. A tremor spread through Álvar, like the shudder of a tree torn from its roots. This was no simple deficiency. It was a silent, all-consuming void opening in the midst of the song of existence his people had sung for millennia. When he closed his eyes, he felt that void growing within his own heart as well. The light was fading, and with it, all things were losing their meaning. Worlds below the glittering branches of Álfheimr, where the massive roots of Yggdrasil anchored themselves deep in the earth, an eternal night reigned, Svartálfaheimr. This was the realm of the Dökkálfar, the Dark Elves. Their skin was dark as polished obsidian, their eyes like raw diamonds glittering in veins of ore. Their will was as stubborn as the earth they inhabited, their spirits as hard as the iron they forged. Their world was a labyrinth of colossal caverns and mining tunnels, echoing with the roar of subterranean rivers. The air was perpetually filled with the metallic shriek of ceaselessly rising and falling hammers, the furious hiss of hot iron plunged into water, and the sharp, acrid scent of burning coal. Their faith was craftsmanship. Craft was not merely a skill, but a sacred worship that shaped the chaos of existence. It was to hew the raw, obstinate power of the earth with will and give it purpose. It was for this reason that the Dökkálfar were the hands that forged the mightiest weapons of the gods. Odin's unerring spear, Gungnir, and Thor's lightning-summoning hammer, Gyllenir, were born in their fire and on their anvils. Their pride was as ancient and deep as the mountains. In the heart of this endless night and fire, there was Hymir. The calluses on his hands were a map of 1,000 years of forging. Iron. The glint in his eyes was a piece of the forge's ever-glowing embers. He looked upon the effortless, innate radiance of the Ljósálfar with a profound disdain. A young apprentice working at the forge had once asked him with curiosity, "Master, do the Light Elves truly shine from within?" Hymir had grumbled his reply as he struck a piece of white-hot iron on the anvil. Each hammer blow lent power to his words. Their light is an alms given, while ours is a victory earned with nail, blood, and sweat," he had said, his voice echoing off the cavern walls. "They wait and receive. We break the earth's stubbornness and create. Theirs is an ornament. Ours is a power." But on that day, as he watched the sword he was finishing on the anvil cool, he felt an unease that even his own words could not console. The steel of the sword gleamed as if it had caught the light of subterranean crystals, yet it seemed dull, as if it had no soul. The sound of the hammer was lost in the void, and the fire of the forge did not burn as fiercely as before. Hymir understood in that moment. The heart of the earth was also fading, slowly, just like the light he so despised above. The ores in the veins were lifeless, the stones mute. His disdain was replaced by a nameless fear and a deep sorrow. The sky of Álfheimr was now the color of sick amber. The light hung over the realm, like a pale scar. Alvar inscribed the most potent healing runes upon the stones, but the stones remained silent. He sang the most ancient songs to the waters, but the streams did not answer his lament. The council of elders convened, their 1,000-year-old faces now shadowed by deep concern. The solution was both hopeful and terrifying. Alvar must go to the crossroads of the worlds, to that ancient forest that was neither fully light nor fully dark, to Myrkviðr. There, the Völva Solveig, who lived beyond time, might know the cause of this decay. When he reached the border of Myrkviðr, he came upon a human village that had taken refuge at its edge, fearful of the forest's dark breath. The village was ruled by the weary and suspicious King Thrain. Alvar's appearance, gliding out of the forest like a beam of light, caused a moment of silence in the village, followed by a wave of fear. Children screamed and hid behind their mothers' skirts. Merchants at the market left their goods and retreated, and old women whispered prayers, drawing protective symbols like the sign of the cross. As enchanting as the unearthly beauty of the elves was, so too were the legends of elf-shot, the sudden and invisible illnesses they were said to bring. King Thrain rose from his worn throne and approached Alvar with heavy steps. His eyes were tired from long winters and endless fears. His voice was like the crackle of a dry branch. "Stranger," he said, his tone carrying both respect and warning, "the sorrowful lullabies of this forest are not for the ears of your kind. Solveig, who dwells beyond the shadows, is a friend to neither gods nor mortals. Her wisdom is like an old wine fermented with poison. It either drives the drinker mad or kills him. Her words are spoken only to be carved on tombstones. Go back, son of light. The only thing awaiting you in this darkness is a sorrow heavier than the fate of your people." But for Alvar, there was no turning back. The dying light of Álfheimr depended on the answer hidden in the suffocating shadows of this forest. He bowed his head to the king with deep respect, and without a word, walked toward the darkness. As the branches of Myrkviðr's colossal trees closed over him like the ceiling of a Gothic cathedral, the world of light was left completely behind. Myrkviðr was breathing with a slow, patient, and all-seeing breath. As Alvar moved through the massive, moss-covered trees, he thought he could hear a muffled whisper coming from beneath the earth with every step he took. The air was heavy with the sweet, damp smell of decaying leaves. In the distance, the ominous cry of a night bird echoed, deepening the silence that constricted the forest's breast. It was as if the trees themselves were listening with their roots to the secrets beneath the ground. At last, he reached a clearing where the trees thinned. The light of the pale moon in the sky poured down into the center like a theatrical spotlight. In the heart of the clearing was a well, its surface filled with water, as smooth and black as a starless night sky. And on the stone rim of the well sat Solveig. It was impossible to guess her age. The skin on her face was at once as smooth as a newborn's and as lined as a rock carved over thousands of years. Her eyes were deeper, even than the well itself. One who looked into them felt as if they saw the reflection of their own destiny. There was neither light nor shadow in her eyes, only the calm of absolute knowing. Solveig slowly raised her head as she noticed Álvar's arrival. Her voice was like the rustle of autumn wind sweeping dry leaves. "Son of Álfheimr, one need not be a Völva to see that your light is sputtering out like a lamp," she said, her voice holding neither pity nor mockery. "The threads of fate are already tangled enough. Why have you dared to come here and tie yet another knot?" Álvar spoke of his people's pain, the fading light, and their helplessness. When he finished, he knelt in reverence. Solveig remained silent for a long, heavy while. Then she took a handful of dry herbs and bone fragments from the ground and tossed them into a small fire before her. The smoke that rose from the fire gave off a sharp, mind-clouding scent. Solveig closed her eyes and began to murmur in an ancient, forgotten tongue. As her voice rose and fell, the air in the clearing seemed to grow heavy, as if invisible curtains were being drawn aside, the borders between worlds thinning. For a moment, Álvar thought he heard whispers in the air, the voices of the past and the future. As her voice rose and fell, the air in the clearing seemed to grow heavy, as if invisible curtains were being drawn aside, the borders between worlds thinning. For a moment, Álvar thought he heard whispers in the air, the voices of the past and the future. Finally, Solveig's eyes opened, and a prophecy fell from her lips like a judgment. The golden bough of the sun stag is broken. The light thread unravels in the weave of the cosmos. The healer's song can no longer mend the wound. The cure must be forged in the blood of the earth, under the hammer. A hand as black as pitch holds the living ember, but remember, the price of dawn is always the shadow. When the prophecy ended, a single tear traced a path down Solveig's cheek, through the 1,000-year-old lines, and fell to the earth. Her hands trembled slightly. The words hung in the air like a cold mist. Álvar felt the heavy, cold chains of fate closing around his neck. A stone settled in his chest, and his breath grew short. A hand as black as pitch. This was, beyond a shadow of a doubt, a sign pointing to the Dökkálfar, their ancient enemies. And the living ember could only be the legendary Heartstone, said in myths to be hidden in the heart of Svartálfaheimr. For the children of light to ask help from the children of shadow, the very thought was impossible. Solveig whispered, as if she had heard the tempest in Álvar's mind. Her voice was more tired now, more human. "This is not a choice, son of light. The word fate has already woven the thread. You will only go to untie the knot that has been made. Remember that fate cannot be changed, but how you walk toward it is within your will. It can be faced with courage. Just as the gods walk toward Ragnarök, knowing their end, so too will you walk toward your own doom. But not in mourning, but like a warrior." The stone in Álvar's heart had now turned to a block of ice. The Dökkálfar, his kin, whom his people had turned their backs on, whom they said had abandoned the light and buried themselves in darkness and ambition. Now, he had to overcome not only to save his people, but also the prejudice and hatred rooted in his own soul. This journey would be an expedition, not just to the dark depths of the world, but to the most shadowed corners of his own being. When he closed his eyes, the pale moonlight filtering through the branches of Myrkviðr seemed to fade, symbolizing the weight of the arduous journey ahead. Standing before the colossal, rune-etched stone gate of Svartálfaheimr, Álvar felt the light within him flicker, weaker and more inadequate than ever before. Even the air here was different, cold, metallic, and heavy. He felt the blood in his veins slow, as if turning to ice. From the opening of the subterranean gate rose the smoke of coal, and a warmth from the depths of the world. The ancient runes on the stone's surface pulsed faintly and rhythmically, like a beating heart. When he stepped inside, He saw Hymir standing at a great anvil in the center of a vast cavern. The leather apron on his back reflected the crimson of the forge's ever-burning flames. The muscles on his bare arms were like rocks, ready to move at any moment. He had just set down his hammer, but the fire in his eyes screamed that the battle had already begun. A scornful smile spread across Hymir's face when he saw Álvar. His voice was as harsh as two pieces of iron striking each other. A Ljósálfar. So, when your brilliant light finally flickered and died, you came crawling to us who live in the shadow? Your sweet songs might make flowers bloom, son of light, but they cannot breathe life back into the stone veins of the world. This fireless, frozen heart can only be reborn with hammer and fire. Álvar did not look away from his gaze in the face of these venomous words. Despite the weariness in his voice, there was a resolve. The light was born in us as a gift, yes, but in you, it was earned with the blows of a hammer, with will. The prophecy has woven our paths together like a braid. My hands are for binding and healing, yours for breaking and forging. But it seems that fate asks us to build a new bridge from these two. The only sounds in the cavern were the growl of the forge and the echo of dripping water. The silence grew as heavy as the anvil itself. Finally, Hymir grumbled and opened a hidden compartment beneath the anvil. From within, he drew out a crimson stone with black veins running through it, which pulsed like a forged heart, the Heartstone. Even as he held it, his hands trembled slightly, as if the ancient life force within the stone resisted his will. Their attempts had ended in complete failure. When Hymir tried to forge the stone alone, it threatened to shatter with every hammer blow, its inner light flickering and dying. When he placed it in the fire, the stone's crimson glow turned to ash. When Álvar sang his most potent healing songs, the notes struck the stone's surface and vanished as lifeless whispers. Hours later, Hymir roared in rage and desperation. He threw his hammer to the ground, the sound shaking the cavern. The iron is mute alone, the song is empty alone. Perhaps the gods mock us. They created light and shadow as enemies, so they might never unite. Álvar, exhausted but not without hope, answered with a trembling voice. No, he said. The highest branch of Yggdrasil and its deepest root are fed by the same trunk. Without your fire, my breath is a whisper. Without my breath, your fire is a blind flame. Together we can awaken the same heart. And then, in a final act of hope, they began together. Hymir raised his hammer, but this time not with rage, but by listening to the rhythm of the earth's heart. Each blow of the hammer was rhythmic and powerful, like the beat of a drum. At the same time, Álvar closed his eyes and began to sing. His voice was no longer a plitting melody, but an invisible wave that accompanied the metallic sound of the hammer, wrapping around the stone's dark veins like a silver thread. They were like fire and water, night and day, and in that moment, the impossible happened. The Heartstone suddenly shone with a dazzling light. Within it was both the deepest black of night and the first silver light of dawn. Light and shadow mingled, but they did not destroy each other. Rather, they completed one another. The stone began to glow with a steady pulse, like a beating heart. When its light struck the cavern walls, the shadows did not flee in fear, but began to dance with the light. Álvar and Hymir returned to Myrkviðr with the Heartstone. Its glow revived the forest, yet King Thrain met them with fear and anger. To the mortals, a light elf and a dark elf walking together was a sign of disaster. To prove its power, Álvar brought a withered oak back to life, but doubt remained. Then Hymir spoke. Power dies if hoarded. Fire that only consumes leaves ash, and light that only blinds serves darkness. But together, they forge life. The king fell silent. The crowd whispered in awe. For the first time, shadow and light stood side by side in hope. Solveig appeared one final time. The bough was broken, but the roots have rejoined. Now one heart beats light and shadow as one. Alvar and Hymir placed the Heartstone into Yggdrasil's roots, and life surged through the worlds once more. From that day, a new melody echoed through the branches, the song of the broken bough. What was broken was solitude. What was mended was unity. The story may have fallen silent, but the whispers still linger. How would light and shadow dance within you? Would you let them drift apart, or unite them as one? Now it's your turn. Choose the next legend, the enchanting call of the sirens, the phoenix rising from the ashes, or the melody of earth and friendship hobbits. Share your path in the comments. And don't forget, if this journey has enchanted you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you'll be the first to hear the next whispers of mystery and legend.